Welcome to the Golden Feather. Grab a pint, a plate, and pick your seats. Your hosts, Virtek and Chibi Bree, are back from their latest adventure.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode with the Golden Feather. Today we have Pharazon Gaming with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
And I think it's safe to say that we are all pretty excited for what was just dropped on us. Just 2 days ago now?
Yep.
Yeah, it's about right. It's about right.
Yeah, pretty excited. How are you guys feeling about it? Did it, like, I don't know, is it starting to feel real to you?
Very much so.
The joke there is that is actually the title of this podcast, so...
Oh man, well, it wasn't a necessarily deeply informing, like not a lot of detail to it. Just the fact that they had like the live play or the gameplay, not live play, I guess, because they weren't actively playing it at the moment. But you know, the gameplay that was recorded, you know, scabs and all showing, it was actually pretty fantastic. Yes,
Makinoji, we are aware. We've been dealing with a little bit of sound issues on my end for whatever reason. My internet is unstable, even though I'm using a Ethernet power over power kind of thing. So just bear with us. They might speed up and they might lag out. Just please, we are aware. And Pharazon, how are you doing?
I'm super excited. I was really glad, like, whenever we got the dates originally, you know, that they were, you know, doing Alpha 1 truly this fall and everything. And then to be able to get to see that original playthrough and then to see the additional stuff they showed this time, you know, getting to see more spell effects and just as you just get to kind of see more and more of it build up, it just, like you said, it does be more real because it just feels more substantial. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've seen comments everywhere. Like, things are just lighting up about this, and a lot of people are saying, wow, this actually might be happening. There might actually be an MMO, which, by the way, just to give you a leak from PI, Steven has confirmed there will be an MMO. So, you know,
I was about to be like,
yeah,
you just gave me a start. I was about to be like, oh my god. Oh my gosh.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
You're so
and thank you for coming to the stream. Now we don't have any content to do anymore.
Yep, right. See? Well, officially been TOS'd. Thanks for tech. Bye. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Just had to get that one out there. But yeah, that's the thing. Everyone's actually getting a little bit more hyped now. Even people that kind of wrote it off, is they're seeing that there is, you know, MMO related gameplay going on between the last live stream and this one. Like, they showed off some quests, they showed off the node thing. Yeah, don't do that. I do what I want. Okay, don't judge me. And they showed off like the nodes progressing. They showed off some quests, and now they're showing off the a little bit more polished gameplay than it has been in the past.
Mm-hmm,
so
indeed.
It's really nifty.
Honestly,
we need to dial down some of those spell effects.
You think they need to dial it down? Is that what you said?
Tiny bit.
Okay, because I was gonna say, like, from my perspective, especially with some of them, I'll be showing you guys a clip from their live development soon. But one of my favorite things is literally when you're in like the darkest part. Okay, so like low key, I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Sword because somebody got it for me recently to be able to play, and there's this one area where you are checking out like the whole fairy area, and it's all dark except for like these mushrooms that light up, and that kind of reminded me of the Ashes podcast, because in that same kind of idea of area, there's like grass, there's like these mushrooms that are lit up, you're in like a dark area. The only thing like that was lighting up was the spell effects, and I thought that was super unique and interesting. The music is super loud. Okay, got it. Sorry. Okay. But I thought that was like super unique and interesting comparatively to what I've seen in other games, and how it lit up the walls and how it like lit up things around us. Like, I I thought that was just, I don't know, I felt like that was great. Like, maybe if there's a way to, we keep telling the band to keep it down. Maybe if there's a way to, like, do a slider where maybe if you're out and about, like currently what I was just showing on there, I felt like it was maybe too bright for, like, the hallways necessarily, but, like, in the darker areas where it lights up everything, I think that's really cool. So maybe if there's, like, a slider where it's, like, kind of like automatic headlight. If light enough, lower the brightness. If dark enough, increase the brightness.
Oh, yeah, see, I'm okay with it being the same everywhere. Like, that's not a big deal to me so much as just in any kind of an area. If I'm trying to look at monsters and creatures and everything, and there's that many, you know, spell effects and little sprites blasting everywhere.
Yeah.
Just, it begins to be a little bit overwhelming, like trying to concentrate on what's going on over here,
like,
looking for my people. If I'm a healer or a tank, like, are my people being chased? I don't know. There's explosions everywhere. I can't even see my people.
I mean,
but do you think that that's something that they should dial down, because, or do you think it's just something you should be able to control on your side? Because, like, I'm personally of the mind, like, I want big, flashy, magey, awesome spells. Like, I want to feel crazy powerful when something goes off. I get that it gets in your way, like whenever I cast a huge meteor spell, but, like, is it cool that you can just turn that down, like, dial down the effect on your side, but the spell itself is actually built to be kind of flashy?
I would love it if I could have a raid mode, like a normal mode and a raid mode. Normal mode is, I dial down to, like, midway what they had. Like, I do like to see really flashy effects, especially on high level skills and such. But when I go into a raid, sometimes, you know, if my computer is going icky or my internet or whatever, like, I may want to dial it down to keep it, like, not as impactful. But other times I want it to be epic. I want it to be an epic battle. We're going through some serious stuff here, and I want everything to be exploding everywhere. So yeah, I'd like there to be just a button I can click for raid.
I think that makes perfect sense. Like, we see that in a lot of other MMOs where you can say, like, I want to see all of my own personal effects, but I don't really want to see anybody else's, or that you only see maybe like an outline. I think Final Fantasy's got a pretty good system, because a lot of, like, the things on the ground that you need to be aware of, it just shows you kind of like the small circle of, like, where it's at, but it doesn't show you, like, the whole effect if you've got it dialed down for other people and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully they take lessons from that from other people. So yeah, I don't want my big awesome meteor spell or my big fancy light spell that we, like, saw them show off in the last stream. Like, I don't want that dialed back just because people like chugging their computer or something like that. As long as they can control it on their side, and I can still feel crazy powerful when I'm just grinding random mob out in the field somewhere.
Yeah, I love what Lolly just said. Imagine it, someone just turned the slider, like, all the way down and can't tell anything. Like, wait, why am I taking damage? What the heck? What's happening?
Just saying, that's what the guy does when he just walks away from the explosions all calmly. He can't see or hear it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, that nice cinema look.
Yeah.
But I think for me, things like what they have here look really good, but I also agree that, like, there should be some level of customization, and I know that they previously had talked about being able to lower things so that way it's easier for people's computers who are, like, maybe not as strong as like, say, mine. Maybe they're more like Virtex or a little older than Virtex, where they're barely keeping on with what they already have, but they don't really have the money to be able to upgrade or something. So, like, that way everybody can still play, even if your computer's somewhat potato-ish. Yeah, toasters. People have toasters, exactly.
Yeah, mine's not potato level. It's it's about a toaster.
Yeah, but I said somewhat potato-ish can play. But yeah, basically, I think what they have here is really, like, interesting. I don't know. I think it's cool. My only thing is sometimes I feel like the particles are too much. Like, when they were doing that one, like, healing thing, and it was, like, all, like, wavy, like, particles everywhere. I definitely noticed more particles in this gameplay than I did in a previous gameplay, so I feel like that's something that might have been new that was implemented. It does look good, but it does look like a little bit much on the particles. Just a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly with me, it's like a lot of the melee skills and, like, short range skills were just fine. It was just literally the big explosions that I don't know, too many of those in a row, and I can't really see my people.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
like Theater said, beautiful effect needs to be toned down a little bit. But
Which could be perfectly solved if you can adjust your own and you can dial it back on your own.
right, exactly.
Done. The end. Happy.
And I think part of the reason sticking out is they're also a little bit on the bright side. Like they still are fairly. I think some of those, like the amount of brightness to them just doesn't, like, it is a little high. It almost gets to the point where it's almost white in places.
Yeah.
So like if I feel like they dialed that back,
Like
it probably wouldn't
this
be
one.
as bad on some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because especially like in the center, it almost goes completely white, and that's probably a bit too much. Like I think a slightly more muted color palette would be a little bit more
And you know what?
appealing to people.
And that actually leads me to a different question that maybe somebody more technically knowledgeable would be able to attest to, is with the ray tracing technology. If they'd be able to build in spell effects to take into effect and into account the amount of light, like ambient light in the area. That way, if there's like a lot of light in the area, sure, you can make the spell effect brighter. But if it's dimmer, then it would automatically tone it down a little bit, so you're not like getting blinded.
I mean,
Yeah.
so it could definitely be done because like though that a lot of the spell effects and stuff are done, you could definitely have a couple of them that you could load. I mean, they'd basically have to have probably 2 or 3 of them. I don't think it would be like entirely dynamic, but you could have areas where on the map that they're flagged as underground or low, medium, high levels of light. Like that should be a tag for that area or the environment. So they could potentially do something like that. The other thing that they could do with that is have it be. Sorry, this is only slightly related to what you're talking about, but there's an effect that I've seen in other games, not necessarily an MMO, but when you're in a dark area, you have ever seen the light blindness?
Mm.
That as well, like that would be an effect kind of in that same thing. Like if you can kind of know what the level of light is, could you also create kind of like light blindness and stuff like that for some of the spells?
Hmm.
Oh, that'd be neat. That'd be neat.
That'd be cool.
A side effect to happen. I don't know. It'd be interesting. I think technically they could probably do it. I don't know if they feel like the gameplay would be, or if the effort to do it would be worth it. But
yeah,
I don't know a whole lot about game development. I just know from a programming side, like it could be done.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's all. Even assuming like they were to go the route of like my question anyway was if they were to go the route of ray tracing technology, which they've basically said, yeah, not right now. Maybe down the line, maybe who knows? But it just occurred to me like maybe ray tracing could be something that could dynamically change that, which would be neat. But
also, you can kind
I
of
don't
tell
know
from
a lot about the technical side.
Right. Also, you can tell from some of these like skills. There's like a sun flare or like a screen flare of some sort, where you can see like from the brightness, it's just like doing that interesting effect on there.
I like how it lit up the walls.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing I was gonna say is like, I think my most excited thing that I am experiencing right now is the underworld. Like I saw before, I think they had like some stuff before with showing how underworld, like the foliage was going to be bright like it is in this video, but actually seeing it in person, like in the gameplay, and I mean Virtek was able to make it to the PI meeting and like previous parts of the stream, and I kind of missed it because I was in the middle of something. But looking at this, I can agree that sometimes this gameplay does actually look like concept art to me.
It's really well polished
quality.
and really well, like really high quality, really detailed.
And
it doesn't look like those screenshots that they showed off. It doesn't look like it's in-game capture, but they were all in-game capture.
And I mean, even just looking at like when they're not moving, but they're like fighting and like looking at everything, it literally does look like concept art to me. It's really cool. But like this is one of the moments where like that particle is just way too much. And as Lolly had said previously, it's fine in small groups like how they have it here, but can you imagine like 5 clerics in a 40-man, or maybe even 10 different clerics in a 40-man? I don't know what the level would be if you're trying to do pushing, you need more healing, but like all these different like cleric or healing effects as well as mage effects, like that just adds on and pretty soon you're just gonna be in a big old puddle of just stuff constantly happening. So
And I'll be honest, like if they didn't change any of that, I would probably be able to get used to it. Like it's not completely out of hand, like completely like way too far out, but it's just, it'd be nice. I'd like to dial it back a little bit, just a tiny bit on some things and call it a day.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's. I think as long as you can, even if you couldn't get rid of like your own, like you couldn't dial back your own, as long as your spells show and nobody else's, and then the enemy things show, then I think you're in a pretty reasonable place, because there are very few things, at least in other MMOs, there's very few things that another player does that you need to be aware of where it's at. There's an occasional, like maybe a healing thing that you need to know about where it's been placed or something like that, but it's pretty far and few between. So I mean, I don't think it'll be too bad when you get to the raids if they can at least have that option. It seems pretty standard at this point. I don't know why they would have a reason not to go down that road.
Yeah.
I do have a question, because you were talking about how good this looks. Like right here, these little bioluminescent flowers. So I agree that like the walls and like all of the foliage on them look amazing and actually kind of have a very grounded and realistic feel to them. Do you all think that the brightness on the bioluminescent plants is a little too high? Like they don't feel quite as real as the other pieces?
So
I'm just curious about other people's personal taste on those.
To me personally, I feel like they kind of are serving as lamps.
Yeah.
So if I didn't view them as lamp sources, then yes. If they were to be turned down, if they wanted to create more of that lamp feeling, then I think they should definitely it looks fine to be honest. Yeah, I think they should definitely put more clusters together to create more of a lamp. But from what it looks like, they look like they're supposed to be overgrown to be more of a lamp structure. But also, not that it's an MMO whatsoever, but comparing it to what I've seen in the Pokemon Sword, it seemed that they had like a few of the mushrooms that were overly bright, but that served as like lamps so that you could walk through the dark area. So I think if it's similar, I don't know. I'm really fascinated by the bioluminescence. So
no, I definitely like it. It's just it's almost like whenever you are walking down the street and you have like kind of normal lighting and things like that, and then there's like a really bright neon sign and there's not really anything else, right? Like it just kind of sticks out. Not that it necessarily looks bad or that it's incorrect. It's just like you said, the world looks very good and has got very kind of a real feel, and the plants feel very much like a neon open sign or something like that to me.
The only thing that I would say that feels kind of off to me a little bit is that if you look at one of the plants and like the light on the wall, the light and dim parts don't exactly match up, so it doesn't seem as realistic in that case. Where sometimes the plant has dimmed down but the light on the wall is still kind of bright, or vice versa. So I think that's the only thing that seems kind of unrealistic. But like right here, if you look at the green lighting versus the yellow lighting, it could also be the color of it and how well that's showing up. Maybe they might have the yellow one just a touch softer, but the yellow one doesn't seem as bright as the green ones do, but it's still there. I don't know if that has to do with color or whatnot.
Yeah, and I realize it's still alpha too, so I mean, we have no idea, or it's still technically pre-alpha, but so it's not necessarily final. But I was just kind of curious. No, but your points make perfect sense.
Yeah, they may very well have adjusted that like yesterday, but yeah, I'm kind of in agreement. Like because they're being used as the light sources for the dungeon, I don't think it's so bad. But you never know. There may also be a lore-based reason on why they're so bright. You could literally be walking into a dungeon to like wipe out some evil magic source or something. You never know, and then that'll kind of kill it back down and whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really cool. I
love the.
Excited.
Yeah, no, I love the environments. Like you said, the actual like the walls and the foliage that they have growing on them, all of that. Like that looks. Like you said, it looks like concept art. It looks like a completely polished game in the environments. Those guys are knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, and Z, exactly. You said you just noticed the rainbow effect. Like, yeah, there's so many different little spell effects that I'm catching every time I watch through that. Like the lens flare Chibi was talking about. Like there was a little fireball type effect. Somebody threw something that was like a fireball, and it black, blew up into a lens flare.
Yeah. We're calling it pre-alpha, Ranger. Alpha 1 under NDA testing is starting mid-May, towards end of May, with projections of possibly going non-NDA by midsummer to late summer. So yeah, they're doing a very good job. We're excited. This is a lot of the community's first time seeing true MMO content within the game, aside from the March livestream. But yeah, we are all pretty excited. We're enjoying this a lot. I know that they've been
waiting
working
a while
on this
for this, and it's still a little bit yet to come, but
yeah,
shaping up really well.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I can't wait till fall. And I think too, you talked about how people are kind of saying like it's starting to feel real and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes a very long way to showing like with what happened with Chronicles of Illyria and like kind of people felt like even the content that they were showing versus where Ash is at and the polish level of the content that they're showing, like how many of the systems are already starting to be integrated, like we saw in the previous one, and then to see the dungeon and stuff. Now I think that's a very reassuring thing, especially with kind of some of the events that had happened in that same time frame. So yeah, I'm very happy for Ash. I'm very happy for the community because of that.
Just the actual showing off of the node system functioning normally and how it should be, and moving people out of the way, and the building, the creation of a building in the middle of town after the mayor purchased the mayor system itself, like all of those systems being shown off, like
they don't just
each
come
one individually.
You gotta build
exactly. They had to design all that from the ground up. Like you hit the level 3 town, that you have to elect a mayor. When the mayor is elected, they went through and adjusted tax rates, and they said, hey, we need this type of building. Cool, that type of building started to be made. Now there's a quest to gather materials. You gather the materials, and then the building's made, and like all those systems actually being shown off as they're still in progress, because still pre-alpha, but they're functional already. So all they got to do is polish it up and build it up to where it needs to be. But I mean,
Pharazon, thank you so much.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Not only you stopping by, but you're also gifting us some subs there.
Yeah,
stopping by. He's the star of the show. No,
no, I appreciate you guys having me on. This is, I think, the second or third time I've been on, so I really do appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, we like having you on here.
It's always good hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We always like to try to get a mix of people, but I mean, we also try to get some of our favorite fun to talk to people back on, when their time is available. Unfortunately, a few of the people we try to get on are like, Z's time zone, so Z's pretty dedicated.
There's people in a completely different time zone, so they're like, it's 2:00 in the morning for me, I can't. And other people, well, the COVID madness has them home alone with all the kids, and they just can't shove them in a closet for an hour, so.
Yeah, I wasn't asked, Z. Don't worry, we have plans for you.
We love having you on. We have you on plenty. We gotta give everybody else a chance too.
Yes.
We can't have on just our favorites.
Yeah, exactly. Also, we have to open the opportunity to have new favorites too. So gotta share.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what that is. It's fine. Z is one of well, she's been with us, I think, pretty much from the beginning. She does a lot of artwork stuff, and she's also a mod for Ashes. So if you have any questions, she's a good person to ask.
Z will have some answers for you.
4 a.m. Yeah, Ranger, exactly. By the way, Ranger, thank you so much for yeah, in the US it's Saturday, exactly. Thank you so much for stopping by, especially if it's 4 a.m. for you. But yeah, we do this usually twice a month, but we're gonna be ramping it up as Ashes ramps up to being pretty much every week.
Yeah, I think once Alpha 1 goes live and is actually not in an NDA status and people are able to stream and cover it and really talk about it, it's not NDA any longer, we'll probably do once a week again. Which
brings me to my next community announcement for you guys. Virtek and I are interested in having your screenshots and gameplay, so make sure to tag us on Twitter if you share it, or join our Discord. I will be putting up a space for people to be able to upload their gameplay, or you can send it over to me and I can upload it myself to our area. But yes, we would like to show off your guys' gameplay, your guys' screenshots and stuff like that. Maybe we can do a video on stuff. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Woodchip.
Woodchip.
So long indeed, my friend. So long. Thank you
Speaking
so
of
much.
the OG peoples,
Yes.
Woodchip's been around since the beginning, before the beginning of the Golden Feather.
Yes. Thank you so much, Woodchip. We still take that too as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, anything community related. So Dawn of a Feather. Yes, the Dawn of Feather.
Yeah, I don't think we've started off a channel for it in the Discord, but yeah, just
I had
when we do create a channel
community
for it, just
place.
drop up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just a channel just for screenshots. Just drop them in. That way we can download them.
There we go.
Because we want to, an idea that Z gave us was to create a nice mural of people's game and such. So
Yeah.
by all means, we'll take them all, and if they fit into the color pattern, we'll drop it right in there for sure.
Exactly. Speaking of,
You know what?
there we go. I made
Lolly
it.
was, and then I found out last week that we've been pronouncing the name incorrectly for the whole time.
First ever sub. Yeah. How are we supposed to be saying
Lally?
it? Lally.
Yeah. As soon as the word Lally was said, Lolly goes, "Oh, perfect pronunciation. That never happens." But we've been saying it wrong this whole entire time and never got corrected. I feel bad. Feels bad, man. Feels bad.
I mean, just saying, we're only half the problem. Okay.
Right.
But yes, I
We're
actually
messing up. You
just
gotta let us know.
yeah, I'm used to it. I just in our Discord made a screenshot section, so feel free to go ahead, pop in, drop whatever screenshots you have of Ash's creation content, please. So the game will actually have monthly but no box cost. It'll be, I believe they're thinking $15 per month, but you don't have to pay
Ranger.
for the actual box cost like what WoW does.
Yeah, that's the current speculation on it, is it's going to be about 15 a month. And second AJ. And yeah, there's no box cost, so anytime they put out a new expansion or whatever, you get it. You pay for your game time and you just get new expansions as they come out. So it's subscription cost because, as you can see, they were a crowdfunded game to get a bunch of stuff done.
Yeah.
The owner is putting CEO, I don't know if he's necessarily titling himself owner, but the CEO is dumping in all of his own money to create the game, so putting a lot of faith into it. And so down the line, he wants it to chug out content continuously, and he wants the word end game to not really mean anything because he wants there to constantly be a stream of content to really play.
Oh.
But,
I did not know that was not the command I was going for. Apparently you can check how many Ashes of Creation currency you have from the Ashes of Creation Twitch page, but I was trying to share the link to the Ashes of Creation Discord. Oh my gosh, I've sent everybody on an Ashes thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, we
goodness.
haven't actually figured out what to do with those just yet, so they're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah. We're also I'm working on figuring out some emotes and stuff for our channel. So going slowly. My stats are weak. Aw. But you have Ashes? Yeah, it's like the currency that Twitch does, but they like shut it off. 1 Ashes equals 1 gold coin in Ashes, exactly. And in here you have gold coins, so
Basically.
yeah. But that being said, Pharazon, have you been working on anything new lately? Get ready to pay up.
Yeah, so for the most part, I'll be doing Ash's content more whenever the game's out regularly. I've really honestly been spending most of my time kind of getting up to speed, learning better audio, script writing, stuff like that. So I've got a Final Fantasy VII Remake review that is almost done. I'm hoping to have done this weekend.
I love Final Fantasy VII.
And I'll be putting that up.
That card
So,
bubble just
super-
looks so weird though.
Super happy to get that up, but yeah, I mean, I'm really just ready for some more Ashes content so that I can actually take some of these things I've been working on, like these skills, and putting them to better use.
Perfect.
Rock on. Yeah, I'm basically in the same boat, waiting for more Ashes content to really do, so we can go back to weekly, because I do miss going weekly and putting up the podcast weekly.
And funny enough, we're kind of going weekly at the moment due to last week being the last Saturday of the month, but then this week, technically, this last Friday or Thursday we had was the last day of April, so we're doing like every week for like 3 weeks straight in this case. But I don't know, I kind of like, it builds up hype. I guess when I do it more often, I get more excited about it, but like when it's every other, I'm like, oh man, it's getting time to start. I guess I'll stop doing this, you know? It kind of like puts you in more of a schedule kind of thing, so. But that being said, I must say there are some interesting things in the community section going on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure if you have your audio turned on for Discord, but
Oh no,
I have
don't.
alerts just pinging away.
Oh, nice.
Z just dropped a ton of screenshots.
Thank you, Z, so much. Oh man. There's so many
Yeah,
screenshots.
as far as I know, wood chip during the QA section of the Alpha 1, it's going to be all NDA, like pure NDA. As far as I know,
Everything that I've heard has been the same so far. That it's a full NDA, and we don't know if it will, kind of like they did with the Castle Siege. If at some point when they get further along but not quite to fall, if they'll say, okay, well, you can guys at least talk about it and then eventually lift it. We don't know if they'll do the same thing yet, but as of right now, it's fully locked down.
Yeah, in our previous, hey Sim, welcome in. In our previous experience with it, it has started off as a full NDA, and then at some point they're just like, you know what, go ahead and just feel free to talk about it, you know? I feel like if things go well enough, I feel like, because that just based off of the Castle Siege, this is my experience from it. But I feel like if things went well enough that they were okay with us talking about it, kind of thing. A positive enough reaction to it. But yeah, so community side things, Virtek.
all right. So yeah, out in the forums, I actually caught a couple interesting posts. I mean, outside of everybody's going on about DPS meters.
Yeah, I got.
There are a few posts going real deep on those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not
DPS
sure who
meters
started that fire.
It comes up. It comes up every single time. Like, and it's not gonna go away.
Whenever the word is mentioned, people like it's a brush fire. It spreads for like 3 weeks and then it goes away.
Yeah, no, I was just teasing because Virtek was having a little bit of fun with D-Phantom during the live stream.
Yeah, there were a few people that were cracking me up. They were doing like, oh, no DPS meters, QQ, wow babies. Like, what is that even? Like,
no, I think it's really crazy because, like you said, people just immediately like go off the rails. Like, there is a conversation there, but you're never going to be able to have it with the vast majority of the community because it's immediately just one side or the other entirely.
Yeah.
It's
so
crazy.
Like, hey, just like limited ones. Just give me one on my freehold that I can personally practice on, and I'm happy. Let me change it into so that the dummy's attacking me and I can practice my tank. What skill gives me better mitigation? But
yeah,
you know, it is what it is.
No, I think it's really funny though because it's you have an example already with Final Fantasy XIV. They do not support meters. They are against the terms of service. It's the exact same stance that Steven reiterated on stream again, and yet
it still
ACT exists, and it will. And it's like guys, this doesn't have to be as complicated as everybody's making it. It will exist, and what will happen is very much like Final Fantasy. The rule's going to be if you post it in chat and you make it obvious you're using it and you're harassing somebody, you'll get banned. And if you don't, then it's fine. Nobody's ever going to know that you're using it.
So it's cool.
Anyway.
The raid leader is going to just be like, you're out. Well, why? Because I don't like you. At the end. You won't even get an explanation. You'll just be kicked out. So at least with a DPS meter in game, or at least being allowed to, you'll know why.
Yeah, is that so? Yeah, I think that people overcomplicate that conversation far more than it actually needs to be. It is much simpler.
And to be honest, like there's always ways around it. Like, if you don't allow DPS meters, cool. Well, hey, tell you what, here's an in-game viable method. I'm gonna have my tank hold that rhino over there. The healer's gonna keep him alive. You see how you can kill the rhino. If you don't kill it in 2 minutes 15 seconds, you don't join. Ready, set, go.
The only thing that and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. The only thing I will say that Steven said in the thing that was a little bit wrong is that that you could figure it out via trial and error, but you can't actually do that when you have that many variables. So
40-man raid.
Thing,
no, that's not trial and error.
Right. Even with 8 people trying to down the same boss, if I'm changing things up, trying to figure out if I'm doing more damage or if I'm being more successful, I can't guarantee that the other 7 people are performing at the exact same level every time. So understanding what's changing on my end becomes very difficult. So I do think that with all the variations that they're going to have and trying to give players some level of feedback, like what you're talking about, whether it's something that lives on your freehold, something that helps you understand how all of your kit is working and how all the variations within your kit, that's probably going to be something we're going to need. I don't know that it necessarily needs to be a meter specifically, but like I said, I think it's kind of a moot point anyway, because I think just like ACT exists for Final Fantasy, I think it exists for Intrepid.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm not too worried about it either way.
And unless Chibi had something else to add, like you were saying, like without going down a rabbit hole of it, I'll stop my points on it now.
No, that's it. I definitely don't want to go down there. I think it's like you said, it's just one of those things that people get way too caught up in. You know?
I'll just kind of play devil's advocate.
We can move on to other better topics. Okay.
I'll just kind of play devil's advocate and say I like having a meter so that, you know, I know what I'm doing, but honestly, I've not really been in a situation where I'm not allowed to know what my damage is, so I'm willing to try it out, but I'd prefer the meter, I guess, is all I'm saying. Like, some sort of feedback, like you guys are mentioning. It's good to know. I mean, min-maxers, I'm one of them, sorry. It's more fun. But,
Yeah.
But I did see something about visualizing your character getting stronger.
Yes. There's a fun post Marzzo that actually I think even Lally commented on, I do believe, saying about how, well, I guess the general gist is that the characters should have a very visual power growth from level 1 all the way up to the top level. Like, you shouldn't start out with how they were going through with the last live stream. They were level 10 and they had some amazing looking skills. Like, oh, that looks fantastic, and like over the top, like that's a grandmaster skill for healing right there. No, it's really not. That's a level 5 skill. Like, there should definitely be a visual progression with how powerful you're getting. Like, obviously there's going to be damage and healing and defense numbers that are going to scale, but you need to be able to be watching everything on the screen and just have a feeling that you've gotten more powerful. Yeah. And it obviously gets a little bit more in depth with everything than just that in that discussion, but it's definitely something that I think Intrepid is keying into, especially with how they said that they're going to start with epic gear to begin with, but then build up to be even more epic. Like, you're going to look like a hero from the gate when you start collecting your armors, but you're going to be even more so down the road, which is, it's a pretty cool thing to do. But when it comes to spell effects, I mean, if we're already looking at them and they're already huge and talking about needing to dial them back, and these are like level 10 to 20 characters, they may need to get a little bit more impressive with the big stuff.
Yeah.
Or just dial down the smaller level stuff. Like, level 5 shouldn't look like a gigantic fountain of, you know, the world's lifeblood flowing into your characters.
So, I actually want to take the opposite into that, because I actually don't completely agree with that post. I understand that what their concept is, like that you start low and then you work your way through. I think it's also kind of a little bit of an antiquated idea, and it's something that always happens in fantasy, because everybody always assumes that I start off weak. Well, No, I mean, if I can cast magic, I'm already special, right? It's kind of the whole point of us coming over. You touched on it a little bit, Virtek, where we're already kind of supposed to be heroes because we're the ones being chosen to come back to the world and retake it back. So with that, then can't power level become about the breadth of what you can do, right? So I start with things like fireballs and these lifeblood spells and things like that. But if I have 10 variations of fireball now, like because we got all these different augments that are going to be in the Ashes of Creation systems, isn't that just about power level growth as the spell itself getting bigger? It also feels more meaningful because a fireball spell that never really changes, like each iteration is either, because I think they mentioned things like, oh, well, maybe the fireball spell gets faster as you get more powerful, or the explosion gets bigger. Well, that feels very predictable, and it's not necessarily surprising, and it's not necessarily cool. But if I have a fireball just from that to something completely different, a completely different animation because I've got a different augment on it, isn't that just as powerful?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's kind of how I think about it.
Well, yeah. The post Marzzo said, sorry, Chibi, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the thing that gave me an inspiration from was like, if you have a new weapon, and let's say you start off with your level 1 like starter staff and your fireball is kind of slow, but like you end up upgrading to a better staff, and then you see that your fireball is going faster. I think that would be impressive. Just the visualization of how fast it's casting, because the idea is that it's a slower cast speed and a faster, more powerful whatever thing. So something like that just kind of inspired me. But go ahead.
Yes, and lights justice to the face, crashes the server. But yeah, I mean, the post did mention something about things flying faster, moving faster, just getting bigger, whatever. And that, as you said, I could see that being predictable, but it also does give more of a sense of power. But even adding more to that, kind of along the vein that you're talking about, let's say you just start with a fireball. People come from a world without magic, right? To a world with magic. Already being able to cast a fireball, just a little fireball the size of a fist, into someone else's face across the field is going to be impressive. To them, from that point of view, if you're role-playing, that's amazing. No magic existed, now it does, and I can do that. But at level 5, you can power it up. You train, you power it up, and now it leaves like a trail of like molten glitter in the sky or whatever. And then the next time you power it up, it gets like a halo around the fireball itself, like a little looping thing around the fireball that flies the whole way. It makes it look a little bit more impressive, leaves its own trail of sparks. And the next level up, it gets a little bit bigger, and then the explosion gets bigger too. And then the actual spell effect itself can be leveled up from something smaller to something much more impressive every time you go to boost it up and add another tier to it. And then once you hit the level where you can add your secondary, then you're totally mixing in completely different spell effects, completely different colors, completely different everything to make it your own. But then it also keeps some of the base increases as well.
Right, but as a player who so I'll talk from my perspective, I guess, to be the most fair. So I guess as somebody who's been playing games for 25 years, like why do I have to play a boring game for the first 20 hours? Why can't I have something cool to start with, and then you find a way to make it additionally cool? Because it's one of these things that I think we've just kind of come to accept, that like I have to have a little tiny pissant fireball and then it gets cooler. Like, why can't I have a reasonably cool thing to start with, and then it gets a little bit more flair to it, but it's still inherently cool to begin with? Like, it gets variation and it gets a little bit additional flair as I level up. It doesn't have such a big gap between level 1 and level 50. That's kind of my thing. Is like I hate having this thing where it's like I've got 2 skills on my bar and neither one of them are particularly interesting to look at. It's not really fun, and I'm just trying to get to the end game as opposed to just playing and enjoying the game. That would be my counter argument to it. I don't know if it can be done, but I'd love to see somebody try it.
I can definitely see that. Go for it. You go.
I actually agree with Pharazon in this case. Because the idea, I don't know. So I think it'd be more interesting to have a flashy spell when you first start. Because from let's take in perspective RP and lore in this case. From the player perspective, we are coming back to a world that has magic from a world that had no magic. So I think having it be that extra bit of flashy, maybe not as super bright as it is, as you guys pointed out, but like some sort of flashy. It doesn't have to be a small thing, but it doesn't have to be a big old giant fireball either, but just something that excites you when you see it, because you're experiencing the magic for the first time coming to Vera from wherever we were. So that's kind of something lore-wise that I would like to figure out, is like, how do we learn? How do we know that we like can learn these spells kind of idea? But I feel like that's something Mackie or like the RP lore lovers could go on a tangent with. But just something having it interesting when you first come into the world, and having it like, well, yeah, not big and flashy. It doesn't have to be like super big and flashy, but just more than like, I don't know. World of Warcraft has nice spells, but like the way that they look right now, like the spell casting, maybe if they toned it down a little bit, I think that'd be perfect, because it's like exciting to see magic for the first time, you know, coming into Vera is like my idea.
Yeah, and I mean, I can kind of see your point on that, Pharazon. Like, it can start cool.
Right.
It doesn't need to be terribly boring, but at the same time, it needs to start uncool enough to where there's plenty of room for growth. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to have like your level 50 basic fireball look like a nuclear explosion because you had to go to that extreme to make it more cool, level 40 version, which was that much more amplified cool than the 30 and the 20 and the 10 and the 5 and the 1.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want it to be so extreme at the end, so you can't have it be so extreme at the beginning. It can look cool, it just can't look really cool.
Right. It's the idea of raising the floor, but not getting too close to the ceiling. You need that room to grow. You need to have, you know, whether it's, you know, things get additional lightning effects around them, maybe runes start to appear, they get bigger AoEs, maybe, you know, there's different things that you can add to things as they get more powerful to represent that power growth. But it's just not saying like, well, I'm going to drop a meteor, so it's just going to be a red rock to start with. Well, we don't have to go all the way down there. You know, we can start a little bit higher up. And I think that's my big thing is like when people are having that conversation, I just think they have a natural inclination to go all the way back to, you know, like a traditional fantasy game. And I feel like that just, like I said, it creates a less interesting or less engaging early game. And I'd like to see them steer away from that a little bit. So yeah, not starting all the way at the top with like perfected spells out of the gate.
I would say I think it would be cool if they had like as you increase your skill level, maybe the way that the effect happens is a little different. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when I played World of Warcraft and I was like Holy Priest and I did a spell before they did like specific effects for like certain spells, it was kind of meh, and then like after that it looked really cool. So that could be another way to induce power is, well, you were casting it for this long and you got used to casting it like this for so long that like now when you've hit level 30 or something, or 25, because let's say was normal cap for the first game is usually a what, 50? So let's say you hit 25 or something, and then now your spell changed for one of your main spells, and each like 25 up from whenever you got the last spell changes or whatever. But I think something like that would be interesting as well to explore. Just like you've mastered this, you've gotten through this many X amount of levels, and now it looks slightly different kind of thing. Granted, that sounds like a lot of work on their side for the team, but just something that sounds unique. Kind of like with the whole augmenting. If I'm primary cleric, secondary mage, for example, I want to know how that changes the way my spells look, kind of thing.
Yep. I have a kind of a question related to this for you guys, because I think one of the things that I actually think, I mean, this is something that'll be interesting to see how they address, but I also think it's going to be really interesting from a visual power standpoint, how they're going to represent melee versus, like, melee and physical ranged versus casters. Because even as you're watching the footage, melee is far less interesting looking. I mean, just the visual impact that they have, like the spells that they use, like they don't, like, I love the whip, by the way. I don't want to downplay the whip because I love me some whip animation, but like just in terms of overall, like I don't feel like melee and physical range typically have as much room for that. So like, do you think that that's going to be something that they're going to struggle with to like give them additionally cool things to do if you're just stabbing people all the time?
Well, and that's the tricky part too, is that melee with their skills, like typically they're a little bit more rapid fire than range are. Like you're going to be using skills a lot quicker. Like there's not going to be a charge up time or a casting time or anything like that. Like no 2-second cast times for, stab the guy in the knee or something. Like, so there's a lot more of them. So it's more about there's different things going on. Like I do like the fact that even in the video that's playing right now, when they swipe their melee, I mean, they have like lava looking something's attached to their weapons or whatever, because it's like swinging through the air and just fire is just trailing right behind it, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I think melee, like there's always that running joke. I'm not sure if you do the tank thing, but as a tank, all you see is the boss's junk in front of your face, and that's the only thing you can see on the screen.
I've been looking at this dragon's knee the entire fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if you put too many effects in there with like a group of melee with you, it's going to be, I mean, yeah, I guess more interesting, but it's going to be overwhelmingly just, you can't really look out and see the party because you're going to have like 7 swords flinging, doing weird effects next to you, and you can't see, are the ads coming out over there? I don't know. Can somebody tell me when they come out? Because that'd be pretty cool, because I can't see it, and as a tank I need to taunt them.
Yeah, and it's weird because like I completely understand like the thing that happens with melee, because like if you're dropping meteors on the boss too, like they have to contend with everybody's effects. But like just even like the idea of feeling powerful whenever you're out doing your grind, or you're doing your PvP or whatever you're doing, like your spell animations relative to casters, like most games seem like they don't really balance that super well or give you like really visually interesting things. And since we're talking about like being able to see growth within your character, like to see that power level, like isn't that, I feel like that's going to be much harder to do for melee. I mean, because like you said, I mean, they've got a couple of effects here with trailing and stuff like that, but how do you scale that? How does that get more and more interesting over the course of 50 levels?
And that's the part where I personally don't have any ideas right now on the spot for it. But I mean, that's something that I think somebody would have to really ponder for a while, because again, like at least as a tank, you don't want all your melee sitting next to you, like dropping a whole bunch of skills that just are way too flashy, and 6 melee next to you doing really flashy things is going to be really distracting.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know. And I really hope there is something, but I don't know what exactly they could do.
Yeah, and I don't either. That's why I was just like, it's one of those things that I don't tend to play a lot of melee characters. I typically kind of end up in major healer territory most of the time. But every time I've kind of dipped my toe into that world, I've always felt like, man, I am really kind of uninteresting. Like I got a few flips that I do, stab a guy a couple of times. I maybe have a thing I lay on the ground, but like the things that I do don't feel as cool in a lot of cases as, giant meteors falling down and stuff like that. So I'd be very curious to see how that actually plays out.
Yeah, I think if they were to go spell effect and skill effects for range, but more animation effects for melee, like you have a much wider variety of animations you can do, and your skills look visibly different in how the character moves and interacts, and just tiny little details on anything. Even like when you taunt a boss, you actually literally hold up your shield and smack your sword against it a couple times and like yell at him or something. It visibly looks more impressive than just going like "rawr" and running at him or whatever. Like give me something like a more impressive looking animation, like do some heavy animator work on the character themselves for the melee. and do the special animations, like the really in-depth work on your spell effects and whatnot for your range, I suppose.
I'm just saying, if,
Flipping the bird.
if you do that rare in a dungeon, I don't think the boss would even look at us. Virtek for voiceover.
Virtek for voiceover.
Roar.
Roar.
But yeah, I don't know either. You guys made some pretty good points. Did we touch on all the things for the community stuff, or I thought that was another thing that I missed?
Yeah, there was another thing I thought was pretty interesting. Actually, it was from somebody I hadn't seen on the forums before. I do believe that might be their only post, but it's from their only created discussion topic. That was from a person called BadPotato. It's called Loot Craft and Time Investment equals Reward System. And it was a giant discussion. Well, really also a giant post to start off with, even.
A huge post.
Yeah, really, really in depth on a lot of stuff. Like covered a lot of ground. But talking a lot about looting and crafting and how it should impact the economy and how people should or how Intrepid should or should not do things. And one of the interesting posts, interesting quotes, I should say, early on in that was, it also didn't make any sense to get top tier loot or top tier sword off a dragon boss in a raid, or a pair of leather gloves on a stone golem boss when they don't possibly carry it around on their body. I've heard in previous developer streams that you will follow the logical approach in looting. However, does it also apply to raid and dungeon bosses and world elite bosses? Quick side note on that is dragons hoard everything. They hoard all the stuff if it's shiny. If you're going to get a top tier sword off a dragon, I wouldn't be surprised because it probably shines. It might have a glow. Maybe it's warm, keeps their eggs warm. Never know. Dragon will want it. It's shiny and precious. But besides that, yeah, there were some really good points in there. Like, I don't want to go up and stab a brown bear and get like, I don't know, like a shield. Like, how did he even? Why did he? I don't. What?
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah, no, and Intrepid's talked about that before, haven't they? That in most cases, things will drop things that are related to them, and then like a lot of the really high end stuff isn't that you necessarily walk away with the sword, but you walk away with the dragon's tooth, which then becomes the sword. I mean, I agree with like the dragon hoard thing, or even as in some cases, even if it's like a reward or like things that you didn't necessarily know were there. Like, yeah, the golem wasn't the one that had the thing, but the golem was protecting the chest that the thing was in, or whatever the case. You know, there's different ways to have some of that loot make sense in there. But I do think that they said they were going to lean more into having the dragon's tooth, the ruby, or whatever the thing was, be the thing that you took back and then had something crafted, which gets the crafters back involved in raiding. You know, because that's the thing. That's how they always talk about keeping everybody tied together. Mm-hmm. You know, crafters have to kind of make the gear to get you to go into the raid, but even after you get through the raid, you come back out to have certain things crafted. Yeah. And that's how, like, once you gear out your raid, then that's also how you can potentially funnel some additional gear back out into community, because if other people can't necessarily farm some of those things, then that gives the raid a way to then make money, because the raid's going to need a way to make money because they're going to be consuming a huge amount of resources to be able to do it. So, like, you have to have those economic ties to be able to do that. So I think they talked about it a little bit. I mean, I don't think it was too far out of line with what the post said.
Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, some people have even said in chat already, like, that's pretty much it. Like, they're going to drop things like when you fight a wolf, you're going to get like wolf pelts and teeth and ears and whatever else that can be crafted into something, and some useless stuff that you just sell because trophies or whatever.
Yeah.
But as far as like raid bosses go, you could quite literally, as you were saying, or as you were at least hinting towards, is they could totally be guarding a room, and the room could have anything in it.
Yep.
They could be guarding a chest or a pile of junk that has a bunch of gray mishmash whatever, and then like a really cool sword hidden in the bottom that's half rusted that you got to take out to a crafter and have them polish it up, and suddenly it's an amazing legendary. Like, there could be any of that stuff going on. But yeah, it's I think BadPotato may have gotten a lot of the information out there, but maybe not quite some of it, just because of that part right there, with the Yeah, the individual creatures won't be holding things that they shouldn't be holding in some kind of sensical fashion, but they could totally be guarding something.
I think one of the other things that they're kind of alluding to in the post, and I've only read through it like I think once, so I may not have gotten everything, but there is also the idea that if we go into a raid, this idea that you have to beat the RNG boss every single time. And I kind of like the idea of, we don't know this for sure, but I just as how I would kind of like to see it work is similar to if you've played like Final Fantasy 14, like with the primals, that if you don't get your weapon drop, you're getting a token each time you complete it. And then you can then turn the tokens in to get the thing. So similar in that, like I go in and I go get the dragon's tooth or whatever, but that resource is like a guarantee. Like every time we beat it, we get X number of that resource, but then it can then be used to craft the different pieces. So you may have to go in and farm it to get everybody geared up, but you know it's only going to take X amount of time. There should kind of be a finite amount of time to truly farm out a boss. It shouldn't be this thing where somebody's just really, really unlucky for 3 months while you're trying to farm out gear.
I actually agree on this. And if you don't mind me cutting in so I can have a piece. But
go for it.
I actually agree because there's a lot that I'm gonna just unload because you guys have been talking about a lot of things. But
sorry, please.
No, it's all good. I'm really interested and curious to see where the conversation goes, so I don't always want to like interrupt, but like it helps me formulate what I want to talk about. But like I definitely agree. Oh my gosh. Sorry, the chat distracted me for a second. I definitely agree that there shouldn't be things on them that Virtek, that shouldn't. I'm ignoring chat. I definitely feel like there's things that shouldn't be on like creatures for immersive reasons. I hated that there was random things that, again, how did it even get there? You guys already covered that. But yes, playing Final Fantasy 14 and playing those Edenscapes and being able to say, well, I didn't. Well, first off, you get to choose for what you would like to bid on if there's anything there that you need. Like, well, let's see. The first time I got to go through all of the hand drops, like for the gloves, but now this boss is dropping a lot of gloves. And I didn't get the one leg piece that I wanted, so now I get to rerun it and then be able to try to get that leg piece that I wanted the next time that the drop happens. I agree with that because I've also been stuck in that situation where I just wasn't lucky. And I think that WoW tried to solve that issue by saying if there's 2 of your armor type in the party, the likelihood of that armor dropping more is more likely. But it still didn't seem like it really fit because, like, also not a whole lot of cloth people are gonna be in my party that also run what clerics run for that, so it's just maybe the stats on that are not gonna be as great as what I could have used because the only other cloth wearer is a mage or wizard and not a cleric because there's one healer. But having that token where it could apply to anybody's class, it's very broad, it's very open, it's very easy to get a hold of that. It's not fighting over little things. I feel like that's a good touch, but at the same time, that one super rare shiny thing that drops that is kind of RNG is more like a badge of honor for those that are more like I don't know, like I don't know about Virtek, but I'm a, I guess, trophy hunter and achievement hunter. I enjoy getting, like, achievements and stuff done, but people that are like, look at the super rare sword that I got from this, like, boss. Like, that's also another nifty badge of honor to be able to have. But I do feel like it shouldn't be entirely RNG for your gear for, like, raiding and stuff. Especially if you're trying to make it more accessible to get up into raiding.
It is a weird, you're fine. It's a weird thing to try to figure out because on the one hand, you don't want to make it so that it's so easy for people just to go in and it's like, okay, well, I want this, and then I'm able to get exactly that. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense to have people play the same content over and over and over and have a completely different experience for people who are just as skilled at something.
Yeah.
Like if the purpose is to reward the skill, the RNG is an artificial penalty against that person for their skill. So there kind of has to be, or if it's going to be RNG, there kind of has to be at least a mechanism at some point along that RNG scale that triggers to allow you to get out of that loop. Because there's been times where people you're trying to farm one particular weapon off of a boss, and you may do that fight 100 times and never see it, and it's the first drop for somebody else. That doesn't mean that person was more skilled than you, and maybe you've even put in more effort because you killed it 100 times and they only had to kill it 20 additional times to get the rest of the loot they needed for their group. And it's a weird balancing thing. So it's more so that there needs to be some kind of pressure release valve on that RNG system.
Yeah.
And maybe not so much the way I described it, but like you were talking about, you got to have a way out.
Honestly, I think it's going to work. I mean, even as Woodchip said, from how I've gathered, it's going to end up being, well, I guess to start at the beginning, Steven said that the most powerful gear is going to be crafted, flat out. The most powerful gear is going to be crafted. So if you're going to get random sword drops with RNG, it's not going to be a really strong one, so that's not what people are going to go after that boss for anyway. It's just going to be like the consolation prize of, hey, you got something here, guy.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're going to be getting like, horns of Dragalzabub or whatever random creature they come up with. And that's going to be saved up and used to craft any number of items. Like they could incorporate that into a staff or a sword or, onto shoulders of an armor or something like that.
Yep.
And so the recipes are going to be found within these areas, and then it's going to use the mats found in that area to craft that armor. It could end up being just like it's your regular level 50 iron armor, except it has slots for this and that and the other, which need to be crafted into it, or the powder of the horn of Dragalzabub needs to be ground up and added to it that makes it resist like 500% more magic, whatever the case may be. And so it's going to be RNG based, but it's going to be RNG based on materials that anybody can turn into weapons or armor or what have you. So
and
I think that RNG part is going to be flattened.
You guys in chat, and as well as what we're talking about, has actually sparked another curiosity in me. Is like, how they said as nodes level up, an event will happen, but what happens once that node levels up? Let's say, I know once we get back to like a castle siege and the castle gets overridden, it goes back to a level 1. But my curiosity is like, what happens if those events that happen as the node is leveling, like they've already happened, let's say, but let's say you need something from one of those bosses. I'm curious to see how they're going to implement that. Like, for example, I just kind of like daydreamed, if you would, that like as you're entering the cave, a couple of let's say younger baby maybe dragons escape and fly off. But as you're going further deep, there's obviously the big bad dragon that's there that's like, but perhaps those baby dragons that fly away know where the other dragons are, and in another place in another part of the world, when that levels up, one of those other dragons comes because that cave is now being, I don't know, just something like that, where there's like a replayability of the node leveling up, and that way we have some of those things. But then there's also the value of that super rare boss that everybody found in that one area of the world that's very rarely there, but also has one of the most like amazing crafted pieces, Sorry, I'm just trying to fix the video real quick. There you go.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of curious to see how they do that. And I think Mackie was also touching on that a little bit, saying that he's worried about the replayability for dungeons and raids once people get all the gear and recipes. Like what will Intrepid do to keep people coming back. But the other thing is, how often are those dungeons there, Maybe, like what they said before with the whole weather system, you've only got 2 weeks. You've got most of the year, aka most of the month, to try to do a dungeon that's placed underwater that gets frozen over during the winter that you can't access. And during that time, maybe, let's say around fall in the game, you were maybe almost strong enough, but by the time you almost get to the point where you're strong enough, it's winter, it's frozen over, now you can't go down there and get to that dungeon. there was some mats down there that you needed, you know, something like that. I think that's an interesting situation, but I don't know. I'm just part of what excites me about this game.
Seasonal dungeons.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah, so here's also something that Intrepid is in a great position to do, because brand new game with brand new lore that nobody knows about, is they could totally have, like, have you ever gone into an RPG where you start off and you gain all this random useless stuff and you're selling it to get money to move on and get powerful and buy new stuff and so on and so forth. You're going through that grind, right? You get to the end game and you find out that all that stuff that you earned at level 5 actually went into like the most powerful weapon in the game.
That would be so funny. How many
what if
people
they
would
actually
go
had
like
mats? Yeah, what if they had mats that were like random blues that had zero purpose for the first year and a half of the game being launched? And all they did is the smart people would hold on to them like, okay, so these got to be worth something. Got to be doing something eventually. It's not a gray. It's got to be doing something,
Oh my
right?
God.
And then they keep holding it forever and ever and ever. And then people just, they speculate, and maybe they really need gold, but this thing still hasn't done anything in 6 months. So what the hell? I'm going to go ahead and sell it. Somebody's got to buy it as a collector for it, right? And then somebody eventually just hoards like most of it. And then the content gets released where that can actually come into play. And you have like 25 people out of 10,000 on the server that have hoarded all these blue items for so many so many months, or even like a year and a half, and they're controlling the flow of like really powerful weapons coming out for that tier.
Yeah, I like that Theater said, like, Steven said that all the mats will be needed and not outgrown. But Woodchip's like, Steven is evil if he does something like that. Like, I could see him doing that.
I think it's going to be very interesting because you guys raised a couple of really good points about, materials. Like, the materials have to be relatively flat because, like you said, I mean, if you lose access to a dungeon and you're getting materials from there, for the most part, they still need to remain relatively useful because they can't only be useful while that dungeon is open. Now, I could see like the really high-end pieces having something specific that has to come out of there to make something particularly powerful, but at least at like kind of that mid to slightly high power level, like that stuff has to be kind of relatively flat because as the world changes, you're going to have to go from dungeon to dungeon or raid to raid to do content, and you can't, like, you could get into a situation where, depending on how progressing on your server and how much time you have to invest, where you never got enough materials to make anything because you were only getting, oh, I got 10 here, I got 10 here, and then I got 10 over here, and I have not enough of anything to make something. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something they're going to have to find a balance for. I think it will be interesting how they handle replayability, though. Because I get that you want the contest, right? You want the thing saying like, okay, well, because this event happened, I lost access to this dungeon, so I'm going to try to do what I need to get that dungeon reopened, and that creates good conflict. But what happens when a reasonable number of people have farmed that content? Does that like node and those people just say, well, we're done with that, and then we're going to go find a new piece of content? Or is there a way to make it so that an additional event could trigger and you could actually change that dungeon or raid in some fundamental way to give you additional replayability? I think that'll be a really interesting question for them to answer, because otherwise, there would be a point in time where, like, I guess materials drop wise, you would be done with the dungeon. Because I know they talked a little bit about like the boss mechanics could change over time, but if the loot tables aren't changing over time, then you still get to that same point. So that'll be a very interesting question for them to answer. I'll be very curious to see what they come up with for that.
Yeah, and like to touch on a couple of things there, like for one, like if you have a crafter that can't craft any one item because he has too much of this, that, and the other, it sounds like that crafter has a problem with commerce, because they need to reach out to other crafters that have the exact opposite problem of they have too many of ingredients 4, 5, and 6 and none of 1, 2, and 3. Well, crafter 1 has too many 1, 2, and 3, but none of 4, 5, 6. Hey, I'll trade you a couple straight up. I'll give you 1, 2, and 3. You give me a 4, 5, and 6. Done. Now we each can craft 1. Or for that matter, hey, there's a real common like over surge of like ingredient 1, but nobody has 6 except for like this guy and that guy. I'll give you a pile of these and you give me one of those. Like actually dig into the real exchange of goods part instead of just like hoarding them all to craft all for themselves.
I was just kind of talking more for like as a single player who's like farming that dungeon. Like it puts you in a position where like you're talking about, you'd have to actually go out and buy those. Like you would never have an opportunity to like actually farm out gear. And it's kind of a weird thing. Like I can understand needing to buy pieces at some point, but you could potentially have a scenario where that person's like experience with the game is like, I always have to spend money to do this. Like I don't have enough time to farm if dungeons are shutting off and materials aren't at least somewhat reusable between. So I completely understand. Like you want to push commerce for sure. It's kind of an odd thing to think about because you don't have a good reference point for that in like the current MMO scape. So I'm not sure how that will play for that particular dungeon person.
Yeah, well, you also have to keep a lookout on things like, and even like Mackie was saying, like if there's preferred runs for and guilds start to gate people from runs because they don't possess that gear or whatever, there's always in every game there's always a sub community somewhere of people who are still trying to get something, and they will bind themselves together, and they'll even pay people who are already geared and ready and know that area to run them through. I mean, even if you don't pay somebody to run you through, there's still that community will make their own raid to go make it happen. They will go through it on their own. Like that always exists. And that I think is a big part of something that Steven might even foster. Like, yes, if somebody is willing to sell their time to run you through something and you need it, go buy it for them. Go buy it from them rather. Like if you have a problem with getting into a run because you don't have this or that, but you can't possibly be the only person. So gather up a group of everybody who has the same problem and go do it. Pay somebody to make you some gear that will get you through the prerequisite raid. Run that prerequisite raid enough time to get yourself the gear that you need to go on the other place that you're being barred from. Like there's always ways to get around that. Get on my back.
It'll be really interesting too, because when they're going to have to keep the content open. Like it's not just I can sell this run indefinitely. It's not only do I have to sell the run, but I've got to make sure that it stays accessible to continue to be able to sell it. So that'll be
there's also, you got to figure like it'd be impossible to really run out of content as well, because he was saying that some of the stuff is going to be event triggered rather than just your node got to a certain level triggered. Yeah. So if you have your one main node that's level 6, and then you have all the nodes around it are level 5, all the nodes around them are level 4, all the nodes around them are level 3. Like you have such a wide variety of, in that region, different types of nodes that have leveled up to a certain degree. So the leveling of nodes is covered as far as unlocking some content. But then also there's going to be some mining here, there's going to be some smelting there, there's going to be some fishing here, there's going to be some whatever that's going to also trigger any other unknown number of events. So in theory, there's always going to be the opportunity for any type of event to happen on any one zone of influence. And who knows, maybe they'll all end up staying open. Maybe things don't really conclude so much, because as soon as you unlock that dragon's lair, the same example that we always go back to, because it's one of them that he first said, is you'd mine into a mountain and a dragon pops out. Maybe that just stays as an open air raid from that point on. There's always going to be a dragon in there. Like it's never going to close up and stop being a thing, because that's even comparable to every other MMO out there. Like the raids don't go away. People don't stop running them just because there's new content. I mean, I know people who are still running Scholomance for collectibles years after Scholomance was even like a laughable dungeon from a previous tier. People are still running raids and such for random collectible items, or just because they really like it. I used to love running, why can I not think of it, with the Elder Gods, all the machines, Ulduar. I used to love running Ulduar, just because I loved the mechanics of that place and the story behind it and all the cutscenes. Never know. I think things will still hang out there for a while. I don't think there'll be much of an issue of people not running content.
I agree.
Boy. But yeah, I mean, for those that haven't given the forums a good look over here recently, there's also a lot of other stuff out there, like little posts and things here and there. But definitely encourage you to take a read through. If nothing else, even if you see an idea that you don't really like, at least it's another viewpoint that you can base a new viewpoint of your own upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do read the forums and stuff too. So I mean, when people have things that they want to kind of talk through and stuff like that, it's a good place to put it. Because I mean, chances are they're probably having some of those same conversations internally. And if not, maybe it'll trigger an internal conversation for them, even if they don't openly call it out. So always good to put it out there.
Yeah.
Stream would never die. Stream would never die, Z. It was all you. Nope, Sim. Not gonna admit. It was all... Now we've had some internet issues going to Chibi's computer, so it might hiccup now and then. Sorry about that. Also, if you hear the robo voice, it's due to that as well. But yeah, I think we've gone for, holy cow, like an hour and a half this time around.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else you over there, Chibi?
Nope.
All right. How about you there, Pharazon? Do you have any closing statements, closing suggestions for people, ideas, thoughts?
Let's see. Stop talking about DPS meters. It's pointless. Feel free to talk about literally everything else on the forums. And I'm super excited for the alpha to start, and I will definitely be seeing everybody more then. I appreciate you guys having me on. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for being on with us. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Everybody, thank you again for your time. As always, stopping by, keeping us company, enjoying our random talkings and ramblings. Have yourselves a happy day, and see you next time.
Yeah, see you next weekend. Have a great one.
Hi, everyone.